Hey, this is Jeff Ratcliffe here. Let's talk about the value in daily fantasy for a minute. The big prizes, yeah, they're attractive, but you have to finish in the top 2% out of thousands of experts to win any real money. So even on your best day, you still feel like you're losing. Now you can play something better. Stat Hero. Stat Hero is a house-based game that combines the best of daily fantasy and survivor pools. Each Stat Hero contest lasts multiple days, but requires only one entry fee, so your money lasts longer. Yes, you can play multiple days with only one entry fee. Stat Hero gives you smaller contests and more chances to win, and no more competing with sharks or experts ever, because your only competition is Stat Hero itself. Survive the game and download Stat Hero today and see how the face of daily fantasy has changed. Finally, a game designed for the rest of us. Stat Hero now open for NFL and NBA. For more information, please visit stathero.com.
What is up? It's the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Podcast. My name is Jeff Ratcliffe, and it's Monday, December 30th. Man, we're tying a bow on the 2019 regular season. That was fun. And I said it all week long. It's not a week to have season-long fantasy football. I see some of you Rat Packers, you still have your Week 17 fantasy championship. The numbers in the industry say that it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of leagues out there. A lot of those leagues aren't serious, but some are. And hey, crazy stuff goes on in Week 17, so it's more fun to just sit back and relax. Maybe have a little DFS action, possibly some bets on some of the games. But that's about it. Anyway, so today on the pod, we're going to tie a bow on the season, like I said, and we'll recap everything from Week 17. And then going forward this week, we're going to set you up for your postseason leagues, NFL playoff, fantasy leagues, whatever you want to call them. And I'm already hard at work here, have projections out for the wild card round, but I'm going to set up my rankings for the entire playoffs, which is always challenging, right? Because it's not about the best players anymore. It's about the best players who play the most games, right? So it is pretty challenging. So I'll set up the strategy for you and rankings on the pod this week. We'll get you all ready there. And then on Friday, we'll break down every game for you so that not only can you make the best plays in those leagues, but in DFS, in one and dones, and in player props as well. So a full week of pods. We're not going anywhere. There's no off season for me anyway, but we are certainly not going anywhere right now. So anyway, let's dive into the action from this weekend. A wild weekend for sure. And we'll get things started here with the Jets defeating the Buffalo Bills.
Second down and goal inside the 1 yard line. Darnold, play action again, flips it in the end zone. Jamison Crowder's got it. That's a Jet touchdown. Off the play action fake, Sam Darnold. A little flip over the middle to Jamison Crowder. He makes the touchdown catch, and the Jets take the lead back.
And there you go. The Jets taking this game. A Jeff Fisher-like 7-9 season out of this team. And I was the lone PFFer to pick the Jets to win. The writing just felt like it was on the wall for a victory in this contest. And you heard the touchdown reception for Jamison Crowder. I think all said and done, Jamison Crowder, not terrible this year. There were some times where he was certainly a viable fantasy option. And hey, this was one of those times. 8 catches on 10 targets for him. Now, only 66 yards. Don't ever expect much in the yardage department out of Crowder. But volume and the potential for touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell, as I expected, did see some decent volume in this one. No efficiency out of him whatsoever. 16 carries for 41 yards and then 5 catches for 36. He did catch all 5 of his targets, at least, in this game. And that was a lone touchdown pass for Sam Darnold. There really wasn't a lot going for offensive purposes. And, of course, on the Buffalo side of things, well, they rested pretty much everybody. It was the Matt Barkley show on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Josh Allen did play a series, so you saw him out there briefly, but he was not in from there on. No Devin Singletary, John Brown. I mean, basically everybody was out, so there's no major takeaways to be ahead here. Duke Williams had himself a big day, though. 6 for 108 for Duke Williams. Anyway, let's move on to the next contest on the slate, and that would be the Bengals defeating the Browns.
Dalton takes the snap, hands it off to Mixon, and he sprints into the end zone. Touchdown, Bengals, to go up by 2 scores early in the fourth quarter.
Boom, indeed. Joe Mixon, how about it? I did get some pushback on some folks when I included Joe Mixon as a top 12 fantasy pick for 2020 in my initial rankings, but man, he's been the number 4 fantasy running back since week 10. The guy's been on fire. Another big workload, 26 for 162 and 2 scores for him. Only 1 catch, but hey, he didn't really need to do much in that department, and really neither did the Bengals as a whole with everything that Mixon got done on the ground. I mean, the big performer maybe Tyler Boyd. Yeah, I guess it was Tyler Boyd, 5 for 59. I mean, Uzomah got in the end zone, but whole lot of nothing there. Now, on the other side, if you use these guys for DFS, I don't think you were too terribly upset that, for example, Odell Beckham Jr., 3 for 81 and a score. Not terrible. I mean, it's not going to win you any $1 million contest, that's for sure, but keeping pace in your cash games at least. Jarvis Landry, 2 for 82 and a score. And Baker did manage 3 passing scores, but ultimately it's going to be a different year in 2020 for this team because Freddie Kitchens is out. So we'll see who the Browns go after for their head coaching vacancy. But there's some interesting talent, no doubt about it, on that roster right now. Moving on, Packers just getting by the Lions.
Here we go. Down on one knee, arm extended. Here's the snap. High snap placement made. Kick to the upright. It is good. It is good. Mason Crosby has done it. A dagger. And the Packers are into no worse than the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs.
That has to be the quietest 13-3 season that I think I've ever witnessed. It's crazy. How did that even happen? They're 13-3. They're onto a bye week. And, well, Detroit had some fight in them for sure in this one. But a lot of Devontae Adams, 12 targets, another double-digit target game for him. 7 for 93 and a score for him. Allen Lazard, his ascension continues here. He caught 4 balls for 69 yards and a touchdown. And plenty of Aaron Jones as we expected. Not the most efficient day, but he did put up 143 scrimmage yards on 27 touches. On the other side, I think this will be interesting to see what this team does next year. Ultimately, do they buy into what Matt Patricia is trying to do? I mean, that's a big question, ultimately, that we'll have to see if it's answered. But Kerryon Johnson went out there. I mentioned him as a potential punt play. He did find the end zone, 11 for 53, the explosive upside. So he'll be exciting for next year. And, of course, we got that decent Ty Johnson performance way too late in the season. Not that, well, it wasn't even a good fantasy performance. He had 3 for 65, though, on the ground, had that longer run. Otherwise, a whole heck of a lot of nothing, unless you like the fact that David Blau caught a touchdown. Otherwise, that's it for Detroit for this season. And, on to next year for those guys. All right, on to the next game for us, Kansas City getting by Los Angeles.
The underneath handoff to Damian Williams, and he breaks a tackle up the sideline, 40, 45, 50. Remember, he had the 91-yarder against the Vikes. This is going to be 10, 5, touchdown! Kansas City, Damian Williams, an 84-yard touchdown!
That's a heck of a call right there. To even get that information in about the other long touchdown run. Damian Williams, another big performance when it didn't matter for fantasy for him. 12 for 124 on the ground, 2 touchdowns, added 4 catches for 30. I guess he's peaking at the right time for the Chiefs, not for us for fantasy for sure. And, besides that, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to get excited about on the Kansas City side. I mean, you had Patrick Mahomes go for 174 and a touchdown. And not really much other than that. The touchdown went to Demarcus Robinson. You had the special teams play in this one. Mecole Hardman showing his major upside as well. On the Los Angeles side, is this the last game for Phil Rivers in a Chargers uniform? Quite potentially it was. And I guess, he went out with a very Phillip Rivers-like stat line, 282 and 2. That's about as Phillip Rivers as it gets. Big games, though, for Keenan Allen, 9 for 82 and a touchdown. And Hunter Henry getting in the end zone as well, 5 for 42 for him. Lots of catches. I expected a lot of catches for Eckler. Well, we got 9. Last I checked, that's a lot. Melvin Gordon didn't get a ton done on the ground, went for 46 yards, but did find the end zone. All right, on to our next contest here. Chicago getting by the Minnesota Vikings.
Eddie Piñeiro now from 22. He's hit 3 for 3 today from the right hash. High snap pulled down by O'Donnell. The kick is up, and the kick is good for Eddie Piñeiro. 10 seconds to go, and the Bears back in front, leading 21-19.
Yeah, the Bears pull this one out against the B team here for Minnesota. Allen Robinson finished out his season. Didn't get to 100 catches, but got darn close. Had 9 for 71 in this contest. Great season for Allen Robinson. Not a great season for David Montgomery, but a very good end to the season. 23 for 113 and a touchdown. I think he's a guy that you're going to get on the cheap next year that you may end up being happy about that. Remember, just because a guy has a bad season doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad player. And Montgomery certainly showed us flashes of that this season, that he's got some skills. On the other side, yeah, Mike Boone, thanks. 1 week too late on this one. Boone did what everybody hoped he was going to do last week. 17 for 148 and a touchdown. He's the only person we have to talk about here. He added 2 catches for 12 yards, by the way. Mike Boone went bonkers, and it didn't really help anybody unless you somehow had him in DFS. Thanks, Mike Boone. All right, moving on to a very surprising game. Miami defeating the Patriots.
Albert Wilson in motion. Fitzpatrick back to throw. Looking. Fires. Back to the end zone. Touchdown. Mike Gesicki.
Unbelievable.
With 24 seconds left.
How about Mike Gesicki back in the end zone, running right down the middle, back of the end zone?
How about just the Miami Dolphins and the fight that this team had? You saw Ryan Fitzpatrick go out there, 320 and a passing score, rushed for a touchdown as well. Nothing on the ground for this team, so they had to get it done through the air against a very good pass defense. Gesicki, his star is rising. He went 4 for 34, but the touchdown, so of course we like him. But his star is rising. I'm excited to see what the future has in store for Mike Gesicki, especially for fantasy purposes. And hey, Devontae Parker, the breakout is the absolute real deal. Even in a tough matchup against Stephon Gilmore, he had no issues. 8 for 137, Devontae Parker. Finally. Sometimes it takes guys just a few seasons. Anyway, over to the New England side of things, and man, what a bad time to lose for New England. Obviously, falling out of the bye week. And really, I mean, the team, they weren't able to get much done. Julian Edelman clearly not 100% and not 75% and maybe even not 50% because he went 3 for 26 in this one. And honestly, it's so bad for the Patriots that they had to resort to using a linebacker as like a H-back basically with a Landon Roberts. He's been on the field playing offense for them over the last couple weeks. I've seen him out there. He only played 8 snaps, but he did catch the touchdown pass. We also saw James White get in the end zone, and as a receiver that is, and Sony Michel as a runner. But man, they have their work cut out for them for sure heading into the playoffs. All right, on to the next game. Falcons Buccaneers.
Snap to Winston, dropping straight back. Throws, intercepted, Deion Jones, and the ball game is over.
And that's 30 picks for our boy Winston.
And Jameis Winston throws his 30th interception on the first play of overtime. And Atlanta wins the game.
It was just an ugly play. It was an ugly play. Jameis does manage the top 5,000 for the season, but as you heard, he becomes the first 30-30 guy. 30 touchdown passes, 30 interceptions. I think we're going to see this more. He's the first. He's not going to be the last. It's a pass-happy league. I mean, we're so used to 30 passing scores in today's football. A decade and a half ago, this was not. You wouldn't have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys past the 30 plateau. You'd have 1 or 2, right? And that was pretty common. Today's NFL is very different. So anyway, Jameis still with the Perryman connection was there. 5 for $134 and a score for Perryman. He'd certainly made himself some money over the last month here. Ronald Jones, the inconsistent season, 11 for 106. if this guy could ever straighten it out, he could be a fantasy stud, no doubt about it. On the Atlanta side, I mean, hey, it was a lost season for the Falcons. After their very poor start, though, they were pretty decent, and we saw Julio Jones continue to just be productive. It wasn't the best fantasy day, but 7 for 78, another 7-catch day for him. Otherwise, not that much. I mean, another 300-yard passing game from Matt Ryan, but not that much to report here. All right, moving on to our next contest on the slate, and that, of course, being New Orleans beating up on the Panthers.
Panthers bring 5. Breeze has time in the pocket, throws to the middle, has Taysom Hill wide open to the 40, 35, 30, 25, blocker in front, 15, cuts back, 10, 5, touchdown, Taysom Hill! What can't the man do? Who gets out in front for the block there?
Mike Thomas.
Michael Thomas springs a block down at the 10-yard line.
Is Taysom Hill not the funnest player in the league to watch? I mean, seriously, he does everything. That was a great touchdown reception as well. As expected, by the way, Alvin Kamara got in the end zone twice, but he didn't do much in this one. Most of the work ended up going, and I mean, hey, when you're heading into the playoffs, you want to maybe conserve your guys a little bit, but most of the work goes to Latavius Murray. In this one, they didn't really need Kamara because they got out to such a big lead. Same thing with Michael Thomas. They didn't really need Michael Thomas, so he adds 4 more catches onto the record. Still, that's going to be a record that is going to be tough to top. Then again, we thought that McCaffrey's was going to be tough to top, and he just blew his record from last year out of the water. So we shall see with Michael Thomas next year what he's able to do. Of course, we will be seeing him this week in the playoffs. We won't be seeing McCaffrey, but he goes out another 7 catches for 72 yards in this one. Just 26 rushing yards, but he scored. So, hey, he didn't justify his price tag in DFS, but he is phenomenal. Otherwise, a whole bunch of nothing here really to report. I'm not going to get too excited about Brandon Zylstra. I know some people out there may have him still kicking around on some deep dynasty teams, but this was, hey, it's on to next year for this team ultimately. We'll see who they get in there as their new head coach. On to the next game for us. Cowboys defeating the Redskins in style.
2nd and goal. Play fake. Looking in the end zone. Looking right. Looking left. Back corner. Gallup. Leaping. Touchdown.
What a catch by Gallup. And what a great throw here by Dak, too, because Gallup is on the left side of the Cowboys offense.
That was a pretty catch. The catch and run touchdown was pretty. I mean, it was all pretty for Michael Gallup. 5 catches for 98 and 3 scores. Amari Cooper, 4 for 92. And Randall Cobb, 5 for 82, or 81, that is. I mean, it was just a solid game all around for these guys. But Gallup looked phenomenal. He continues to get better. He was a guy who PFF we really liked coming out of the college level. So we'll keep an eye on him. And as predicted, Zeke had a day. not too surprised here. 18 for 122 and a score on the ground. Scored as a receiver as well, chipping in 3 catches there. So, it stinks for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you had a guy under center for you who almost passed for 5,000 yards in Dak Prescott, tops 30 passing scores. The team takes a step forward in some ways, but they obviously had an accumulation of talent that was way better than what their record reflected. We shall see. As of right now, there's no word on whether or not Jason Garrett will be back next year. If he is not back, that's a pretty interesting job, no doubt about it, because you got a lot of talent there on this roster. But Dallas ultimately missing out on the playoffs. And Washington, of course, will have a new head coach. Who will that head coach be? Sounds like it could be Ron Rivera, but we shall see on that one. Again, nothing has been announced at the time of this pod when I'm recording. Anyway, Adrian Peterson goes out and 13 for 78, says he's going to play next year. I mean, his fantasy days are in the rearview mirror, but he continues to accumulate numbers. I tell you what, though, a player who we have to keep an eye on, he flashed at the end of the season, and I'm quite impressed with him, is Steven Sims. Steven Sims has blazing fast speed. Now, he's not a true X receiver or anything like that, but could he be a guy deeper for fantasy purposes who could produce? Absolutely. 5 for 81 and a touchdown in this one for Steven Sims. Also had that long reception that nearly took that one to the house as well. It's exciting. I mean, there are some interesting pieces in place here on this roster. And we'll see what happens when they get a new regime in to Washington. Anyway, moving on to the other game in the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles taking down the New York Giants and getting into the playoffs.
On first down, Wentz gives to Scott. Up the middle, he pushes, he's in, touchdown, standing up. Jason Peters leveled his man, and the Eagles increased their margin.
How can you tell he's standing up?
Got him. Mike Quick with the funny there, bringing the ha-ha. Anyway, Boston Scott now is a Philadelphia hero after this performance. Miles Sanders going out early with an ankle injury. Sanders was off to a good day, too. He had 9 for 52, and he had 3 catches as well. Scott goes 19 for 54, but 3 touchdowns. So not super efficient on the ground, but 3 rushing scores, so it doesn't matter. And he also did pretty well as a receiver, 4 for 84 there. To any Philadelphia Eagles fans, Boston Scott is not better than Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is the better complete running back, but Boston Scott is a heck of a player and is doing a tremendous Darren Sproles impersonation. And I don't think it's a matter of these guys being better or worse than each other. They're complementary. That's the most important thing. Scott showing you that you can step up and play some meaningful snaps, even if you don't have a high-end pedigree. Greg Ward doing the same thing. Deontay Burnett doing the same thing. Been bounced around the league a little bit here. Robert Davis, even though he didn't have any catches in this one, Robert Davis giving you some quality time on the field here. I mean, he played 56 snaps in this one. Dallas Goedert, of course, phenomenal. Such a good player. Now, Zach Ertz did not play in this one. We shall see if he plays this week, as well as we shall see if Miles Sanders plays this week. Saquon Barkley, for what it was worth, I hope this quiets all of the Saquon Barkley was a bust this year, folks, because he was a disappointment. There's no doubt about it. But calling Saquon a bust, I mean, come back to us a little bit. Saquon Barkley had the long touchdown in this one where he knew 40 yards from the end zone that he was going to score. Anyway, 17 for 92 in that touchdown, went 3 for 25. So really, and that's a tough matchup too. Really solid end to the season for him. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, Golden Tate got in the end zone. You didn't get the rematch big game from Darius Slayton here. Danny Dimes was mistake prone, threw for 301 yards. So he's only going to get better. And he showed us this season, he has a nice high ceiling. For fantasy purposes, that's obviously a good thing going forward, heading into next year. All right, let's head into our next game. Denver narrowly defeating, and this is the last time I'm going to get to say this, the Oakland Raiders.
It's Denver's football, first and goal at the 1. Shotgun for Locke with Beck to his left. Jet sweep action. Locke fakes, rolls, throws, wide open receiver. Beck! Touchdown, Denver! Andrew Beck's first receiving touchdown.
Not the most exciting game. That was pretty much it for Denver on the offensive side of the ball. Not much out of Drew Lock. We'll see what we get out of him next year. Really like Cortland Sutton. He was dinged up in this one with it was called an illegal hit. It was, a defenseless receiver hit. And John Gruden didn't necessarily agree with that call. But either way, Cortland Sutton, his arrow's pointing up, no doubt about it. Looks like Deshaun Hamilton might be pointing up as well. 5 for 65 for him in this one. On the other side, well, hey, Josh Jacobs not playing. Probably the smart thing to do, even though obviously, hey, Oakland wanted to win. They needed some help, and they ultimately wouldn't have gotten that help because Tennessee ended up winning. But not playing Josh Jacobs, I think you have to think about things not only for the right now, but for the ultimate long term as well. So we saw DeAndre Washington yet again. You have a capable backup like him who can give you quality reps. 17 for 77, 8 catches though for 55 as well. Darren Waller was phenomenal in this one, had the long reception, 6 for 107. I mean, if he's not an elite fantasy tight end, he is right at the top of that next tier for next year. And Hunter Renfrow, we're going to have to pay attention to him, obviously, for next year. Just a good football player. 6 for 102 and a touchdown for Renfrow. Gotta love that. No doubt about it. All right. Next game for us is Los Angeles and Arizona.
Higbee, Munt, and Gurley run out right. 2 receivers left. That's Reynolds and Robert Woods. Play clock at 5 as Goff leans in for the shotgun snap. Throws a slant. Left side. Woods the catch. He takes contact, and he takes it in. Touchdown, Robert Woods. Touchdown, LA.
Bobby Woods getting in the end zone, 7 for 67 in the touchdown. A decent game out of Cooper Kupp, 7 for 99 in the score. And Tyler Higbee continued to roll. This is really interesting. Higbee put up 8 for 84 and a touchdown in this one. And the touchdown was pretty darn. It was impressive. The question is, was this just a late season flash in the pan, or was this the beginning of something very good for Tyler Higbee, for the Rams, and really, to be selfish, for us for fantasy purposes? I don't know if we'll have an answer to that question, maybe not even until the season starts next year, but you can't ignore what he did down the stretch. Even though some of them were good matchups, sure, but I mean, a tight end in a good matchup who's just like a tight end 2, that tight end is going to have 4 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. Higbee was going out and putting up, it was 4 straight 100-yard performances and another close. He's 16 yards away. This is not just a backup tight end. Hopefully Los Angeles recognizes that and they use him more heavily next year. Anyway, on the other side, the Arizona side of things, well, we did see Kyler Murray manage to gut it out. He put up 325 as well. And what we did see out of him, he had 2 passing scores, but he chucked the ball to the end zone. We had that stretch there during the season where he wasn't thrown to the end zone much, but 4 end zone throws for him in this one. The Kenyon Drake thing, well, sort of continued, I guess, because he did get in the end zone. 12 for 60 for Drake, an additional 3 for 23 as a receiver. Christian Kirk showing that he can be a higher volume receiver with 7 for 60, so not much upside, but I think that is something we're going to have to pay attention to. And by the way, speaking of tight ends who surprised, I was very surprised to see Dan Arnold's play in this one. Kyler really looking his way a lot, and Arnold's he's a little bit more athletic, not super athletic, but a little bit more athletic. So I think that helped there. I don't think there's really anything there, and Max Williams out-snapped him, but I did find that interesting as I was watching that game. Anyway, on to the next one. Jacksonville coming back in this one and then just running away from the Colts, 38-20.
9:42 to play. Brissett drops into his own end zone. Looks, scrambles around, looking downfield, runs it, and is hit from behind. The ball comes out. The Jags pick it up. Calais picks it up. He runs it into the end zone for the touchdown and then tosses it into the stands. How about that? Touchdown for the big man, Calais Campbell.
I'm about 6'3", all right? Not short. Not super tall, but not short. And in most instances in my life, I really don't feel short. There was one instance where I felt like a little boy. And that was when I met Calais Campbell. He is an enormous human being, and I felt like a small child standing next to him. And a super nice guy, by the way, and great to see the success that he's had in the NFL. Cool to see him get in the end zone as well. Gardner Minshew, is he making a case? He's making a case. Is he a long-term starter in the NFL? I mean, stranger things have happened, right? 295 and 3 touchdowns for him in this one. Of course, one of them going to D.D. Westbrook, one of them going to Keelan Cole, and one of them going to Raquel Armstead. Oh, love seeing that. Raquel Armstead out of Temple University. Not much on the ground, 10 for 33, but 5 for 52 and the touchdown as a receiver. Nice. He was so cheap at DFS as well. I know a lot of people made some dough starting Raquel Armstead yesterday. On the Indy side, as predicted, Marlon Mack, the return of the Mack, 15 for 77 and 2 touchdowns, so he was a solid play. Great matchup for him. We saw a little bit of T.Y. Hilton, maybe not enough of T.Y. Hilton, 3 for 72, but he finally looked healthy enough in this one. Otherwise, the Colts, after getting out to a good start, they just flattened out, and Jacksonville, like I said, they just ran away from them in that game. All right, coming down the home stretch, 3 more to go. Let's do the Ravens backups defeating the Steelers, well, mostly backups.
Pistol wing formation. Hollywood Brown comes in motion to the right. Direct snap up the middle to Justice Hill, and he's in for the touchdown. Great play design. RG3 sold it perfectly. He faked the high snap. It was a direct snap to Justice Hill, and Hill ran right up the middle and put it in the end zone.
Ugly weather in this one, but Gus Edwards. I mean, Justice Hill got the touchdown, but Gus Edwards was having his way. 21 for 130. That was the reason why we kept saying, hey, handcuff him, because if Mark Ingram went down, you'd probably see a lot of Gus Edwards. Other than that, you didn't see a lot of anything. RG3 didn't really get much done. It was, again, it was a rainy game. And I jokingly say against the Pittsburgh backups, but I mean, in some ways, all right, well, you didn't have Ben Roethlisberger out there, right? You didn't have James Conner out there. So kind of their backups. And what you had here, another solid Benny Snell performance. I mean, I think the question that we have to ask is, what is this team doing at running back next year? Can they fully trust James Conner to stay healthy? Obviously they can't. Do they have something here with Snell? Probably not, but I think we have to ask this question for sure, especially as we head into fantasy draft season. James Conner's fantasy arrow is certainly pointing down after this season. Now, some might think Juju's is as well, just 2 for 6 for Juju, so disappointing for sure. But I think that he's going to end up being a nice, not necessarily post-hype sleeper, let's call him a bounce back next year with Ben back under center. Otherwise, that game, well, because of the weather, pretty much a wash. An exciting one here, Tennessee and Houston.
Give it to Henry. He steps out of a tackle and is knocked backwards at the 1. No, wait! They're saying he extended the ball and got it in. Touchdown, Titans! What an effort by Henry. At the end of the play, he reached the ball up with his left hand.
What an effort by Henry on the whole season and in this game as a whole as well. 32 carries, 211 and 3 touchdowns, takes the rushing title, shows us that you don't have to catch 100 balls or even 50 balls or even 30 balls or, well, even 20 balls to be an RB1 in PPR. Finishes as the number 5. If you have 300 plus carries, you are going to be an RB1. Doesn't matter the scoring format. And I tell you what, a star is emerging here in A.J. Brown. We know it. We've seen it. And it just continues. He was awesome yet again in this one. 4 for 124 and a touchdown. And really, he caught a ball basically at the 1 yard line that set up that touchdown. So close to another score for him there. Corey Davis, he's relegated to that number 2 spot, really. 4 for 44. And your reward, Corey, you're probably going to see Stephon Gilmore, because Gilmore tends to body up against the bigger guy, and that would be Davis in this instance. Anyway, on the Houston side, well, hey, it had the potential to be exciting if Houston, if they really had something to play for here. I mean, technically speaking, they weren't completely locked into their spot, but they ended up sitting Watson, sitting Hopkins, sitting Fuller. You really didn't. You got 5 plays with Carlos Hyde. So it was basically the backups. A.J. McCarron out there, really nothing too exciting. McCarron did get in the end zone as a runner, though, which was fun to see. Otherwise, a whole heck of a lot of nothing there. So let's finish this one out with, I thought this was a pretty darn entertaining game. Came down to the wire, a little taste of the playoffs before the playoffs started. 49ers defeating the Seahawks.
Niners rush 4, throws over the middle, caught by Hollister. He is tackled short of the goal line. He is tackled short of the goal line. San Francisco picks up the football, and the San Francisco 49ers, with no time remaining, have won the NFC West and locked up the number 1 seed in the NFC.
What an ending. It's exactly the finish to this season that you were hoping for there. Well, maybe not if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, but even if you are a Seahawks fan, you have to admit that's about as exciting as it gets there to end the season. Speaking of end of the season, well, Raheem Mostert showed over the end of the season that he's the guy in that backfield, and not how we drew it up this year, but it certainly is how it finished. Found the end zone twice as a runner, 10 for 57, so super efficient as well. And Deebo Samuel showing that, he can get it done as well. 2 carries for him in this one. In addition to his 102 receiving yards, he had 33 yards on the ground. Just a all-purpose guy there. George Kittle, solid day at the office. 7 for 86 for George Kittle. On the other side, well, the Marshawn Lynch thing, I mean, he certainly didn't look, well, he's not, nobody expected him to look vintage Marshawn Lynch, but he looked like he hadn't played football in a little bit for sure. He did find the end zone, but Travis Homer ended up being the back who was used more. 47 snaps for Homer, 22 for Marshawn Lynch, 10 for 62 for Travis Homer. So, maybe a little bit of momentum heading into the playoffs because he did have an additional 5 for 30, so almost 100 scrimmage yards. But you got a lot of DK Metcalf in this one. 3 end zone targets for Metcalf. Caught one of them for his touchdown, but 6 for 81. And Tyler Lockett also finding the end zone, 6 for 51. Of course, Seattle heading into the playoffs here will have to travel to Philadelphia to face the Eagles, but they are already 1.5-point favorites. Open at -1 for Philly, but that line moved pretty quickly there in Seattle's favor. Anyway, that's it. That's 2019. That's the regular season. On to 2020 here. Of course, I will be back tomorrow, though, to set things up. We're going to talk playoff draft strategy for you. So if you are in NFL postseason leagues that have a traditional draft, how the heck do you figure out who to draft? Well, I will have that for you with some other thoughts on the coaching carousel as well. A lot of implications right there. In the meantime, do me a favor, go check out the website, pff.com. Of course, on Twitter, I'm at Jeff Ratcliffe. And on Instagram, I'm at Jeff Ratcliffe as well. I will catch you on the flippity flip. Until then, for PFF, I'm Jeff Ratcliffe, and I'm out of here.